was December 7th, the day that will live in infamy, right? How we picked December 7th to do this.
1942?
1942.
Okay.
I've been celebrating it. You see it on news. Okay. I'm here with Pat Hughes, and we're doing an interview for the Oral History Museum because you are a Tempe boy. You grew up in Tempe. We had a little preamble, and you were born in 1952 here in Tempe.
Correct.
Who were your parents?
My dad was Thomas J. Hughes, Dr. Thomas J. Hughes, and my mom was Penelope. Peck was her maiden name. So Penelope Hughes were my parents. They both went to Tempe schools, and she went to Tempe High, and he went to Brophy.
So, what year do you know? What year your mother graduated from Tempe High?
No, I don't. I don't know.
Do you know how old are you the oldest or youngest in your family?
No, my sister Ann is the oldest. She's 72. Ann Hughes. I graduated from Tempe High School in 1971.
Okay, so in the family, your dad was Tom, and he grew up here in Arizona too, as well.
They were both. My parents were first generation natives.
Okay.
Both of them. I'm a second generation native.
Okay, and do you know when your dad was born?
1921.
Okay, 1921, and he was born here in Tempe.
St. Joe's Hospital.
At St. Joe's Hospital.
Yeah.
And do you know who his parents were?
Sure. Okay, my grandmother's name was Cecilia, and my grandfather was Thomas Hughes.
Okay, and Cecilia, what was her last name? Do you remember?
Reed originally, and from her first marriage, her last name was Reed,
okay.
And then it was changed to Hughes when she remarried.
Her maiden name? Do you know what her maiden name was?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
My aunt knows all that stuff.
Okay, so, and your grandmother and grandfather came here from
Actually, here's the history: is that the way our family got here was originally my great uncle Steve, my grandfather's brother, came here from Arkansas, and over time opened a dairy in Tempe. And the dairy did pretty well. And
where was the dairy?
The dairy was on McClintock. It was on the west side of McClintock Road, between Broadway and Southern.
Did he have the whole section?
Eventually, almost. No, I don't think quite all, but eventually, over time, almost the entire section.
Okay, and that was Broadway to Southern, west or east?
McClintock towards Rural.
Okay.
Okay, and then Broadway to Southern.
Okay.
So from McClintock towards Rural, so that would be back going west.
All right. And do you know when the boundaries, how they started and changed over the years? Or
the little that I know about is originally he had a relatively small acreage,
okay.
And then over time, because all of the cattlemen and or dairymen or whatever realized that you did much better by not buying your feed, by raising your own feed for your livestock, that you would do better. So he bought land as he could afford to. And did it was pretty inexpensive back then, so he was able to buy it. So over time he bought quite a bit of it. I think Uncle Steve ran the dairy for about 10 years or so, and then there was a tragic incident where he was killed by his employees.
Murdered,
hit in the head with a hatchet and killed. So here this dairy is not being maintained. So the sheriff had to get a hold of relatives, and he was finally able to contact my grandfather, Thomas Hughes, Steve's brother, and he came out and took over the dairy.
Okay. And you know what year that was?
No, I don't. I don't know what year that was, but I do know that There's a really nice, my sister Ann has a really nicely done article from the paper at that time about Uncle Steve's tragic death.
Okay.
So that's how.
Was your dad alive at the time when he came?
He wasn't. He wasn't born yet.
He was born here. Okay.
He was born here.
And so it's prior to 1921, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in 1921, your dad is born at St. Joe's.
And what happened is grandfather Hughes, Thomas Hughes' grandfather, came here to manage the dairy and remarried here.
Okay.
To grandmother Cecilia or whatever.
Okay.
Married her, and then my dad, my dad's older sister Martha, and he were both born here afterwards. After that, after those two met up and got married.
Was your grandfather married before he came here?
I think he was married and then divorced, and I think she was too.
Cecilia.
So, yeah.
Are there other children?
They're two half.
Dr. Hughes, Tommy Hughes, had a half brother.
He had two half brothers.
Had two half brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Had a sister, Martha, and then he had a half brother, Thane Reed, and that was from grandmother Hughes's first marriage.
Okay.
And then he had a half brother, Monsignor Don Hughes, a Catholic priest.
Okay.
From my grandfather's side of the family.
Okay, and they were born in Arkansas, or were they from here?
I think they were born in Arkansas. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then we'll get to how far or how big did that property become the Hughes dairy?
According to my sister Ann, and from what I've heard, it was almost a full section at one time.
Okay. So that would be rural, McClintock to rural, Broadway to Southern.
Right. And like I said, Uncle Steve got it started, or great Uncle Steve got it started, and then Grandfather Hughes took it from there and continued it to get buying more and more land. Grandmother Hughes actually donated the 10 acres that Mount Carmel Church is on to the church, to the Catholic Church.
That was Cecilia.
Mm-hmm. He'd already died. Grandfather Hughes had died. So just a few years before her passing, she gave the Catholic Church. She was a very devout Catholic. And of course, she had a Catholic son too, Monsignor.
Yes.
Well, actually, he wasn't a blood relative, but...
That was your father's son.
No, that was
your grandfather's son. Yeah.
My grandfather's son.
Yeah, okay. So what we now know as May Place, there was a relative, May. Do you remember who that is, or what? There was a house there on Alameda. It's called May Place.
I think I've heard of it vaguely. I have heard of it, but
and your uncle, the great uncle, that's the Monsignor, did he have a retreat there somewhere on Alameda? Did he come back and forth?
He lived in Tucson.
I know he did, but I think there was always some lore in the community about the property there on Alameda. Their house is still there.
Okay, well, I
don't know about that.
I think when he came, gosh, I would have been so small, I wouldn't know for sure. I think he stayed at the farm some of the time. I know that he started a diocese in Tucson, St. Ambrose.
Right, okay.
And lived a long, full life as a Catholic priest and then a Monsignor.
Okay.
Died as a highest ranking Monsignor you can be in the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. I've heard of this. I've heard of that house before, but don't know the technicalities of it. I know that back where you're talking about there is a street there named Hughes.
Yes.
Hughes Street, which I've never actually seen it, but I know it's there because I've heard about it.
Okay. You may have to look it up on a map here.
Yeah.
So, your father then, in 1921, and then he's in Brophy, and is your grandmother, Cecilia, about the same age, or is she older or younger than him?
Wait a minute, I think we're getting confused.
Oh, your dad.
You're speaking of my dad?
Yeah, your dad.
Okay, not my grandfather.
Yeah, no.
See, they're both Tom. All three of us are Tom.
Oh, yeah, you're that's sort of different middle names.
And I always went by Pat. My dad was called Tom. I think grandfather was called Tom.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what was the question again about?
Okay. I'm trying to find out when your parents were in high school.
Okay, well, he was born in 1921.
Right.
Let's just add 16 years to
He would have
that.
graduated in either 1938 or 39.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
Okay.
The math's there.
Right. And then, and was your mother, but he went to Brophy, so he wouldn't have gone to Tempe High.
No, he went to Tempe Normal.
Went to Tempe Normal
That
College.
which is the grade school?
Yeah.
The grade school.
Right.
And
But then he went to Brophy to go to high school.
correct.
But your grandmother went to what high
My
school?
mother.
Your mother went to what high school?
Tempe High School.
Tempe High School.
Right.
And what was her history? How did she get here?
Well, she was actually she was born here in Tempe, and the Moores. That's where the Moore family comes in. Is
Okay.
that Mary Moore was John Moore's mother,
Right.
and Mary's sister, who's I can't give you the details, but her sister was my mother's mother.
Okay.
So
She was a direct cousin to John Moore.
yes,
Your mother was John.
second cousin.
Well, if
The
Mary,
two sisters.
if Mary has a sister, then her daughter is, her son is John. Cecilia. Her daughter, Mary's sister's daughter is Cecilia, right?
Right.
They're direct cousins. They're first cousins. John Moore and Cecilia are first cousins.
Well, you mean my mom?
Your mom, yeah. I'm sorry.
Penelope.
Yeah.
Her name was Penelope, not
Yeah,
Cecilia.
right. And then you would
Cecilia was a grandmother.
And then you would be second cousins to the Moore kids.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the Moore sons, and there's three of them. And in that ancestry, the Moores was the first governor of the state of Arizona, the guy who has the white tomb up on the mountain.
Yes.
In Papago Park.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's true.
So you're this web.
Right. You're doing like a family tree thing.
Yeah, well, basically, there's some genealogy involved in the people that are doing this,
Sure.
and drawn. They're very interested in those connections. But I'm trying to bring us up into the future. But this is a good foundation because your family's been in Tempe for a long time.
You want to hear a good story about?
Sure.
About. All right. Well, now I don't know how much of this is fact, but it's at least pretty close. When Great Uncle Steve came to Arizona, I think he originally was working in, and I didn't know they had this, but in the coal mines in Arkansas. Apparently, were coal mines, and he said, "Enough! I'm out of here." Didn't have hardly any money, just left. Took off. Ended up coming here, and becoming over time friends with Truman Hayden, who had the ferry that crossed the Salt River.
Okay.
And Truman Hayden helped him get a loan from the Cattlemen's Bank to start the dairy. That's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So that's the way I heard it. And,
Did you have any idea what year those were?
oh, no, that was way back.
It's in the early 1900s, I
Yeah.
think. It's not in the 1800s, I don't believe.
No, I don't think so. I think it's like right about 1900.
Okay.
Right in there somewhere. So some other interesting facts about Uncle Steve was that, like I said, he did pretty well with the dairy. He was pretty successful. And what he would do is that we have pictures of him with his little horse-drawn cart and those really old-fashioned milk containers that, the neck down in the top,
Right.
taking those to the old creamery on Old 8th Street. And what he would do is he would deliver the milk, and they would pay him for it. And then typically what he would do is every Friday, this was his thing, is that every Friday he would pay all the bills. He'd pay the employees, he'd pay all the bills for everything, and then if he had a little money left over, he'd take his horse-drawn cart, and this is a long drive, or long ride, to down Tempe to the Casa Loma. Now that's old school
Right.
Tempe.
Yep.
It was the only bar in town.
Okay.
It was on the corner of 2nd Street and Mill Avenue. And he liked to gamble. So he would take a little bit of money that was left over. He could go to Casa Loma and he would gamble and drink some beers and stuff. And that's why I got in trouble with the employees. He made a couple of bad choices for employees. He hired a illegal alien who apparently had a bad history as an employee and an ex-con. an American ex-convict. Both these guys, and those two teamed up, and they're the ones that ambushed him and hit him in the head and killed him on his way to the Casa Loma on Friday with his spending money, and robbed him for the money and then took off. The sheriff's office did catch them. They caught him. They spent their entire lives in Yuma prison. The rest of their lives, both of them. So that's kind of interesting stuff.
Well, Yuma prison, and that's, I don't know when they closed that prison, but it was...
boy, I heard it was really rough there. I mean,
yeah,
it was like,
yes, they've had some, yes.
So
No,
anyway.
no air conditioning, that's for sure.
Well, if you kill somebody, you'll hit them in the head with a hatchet and kill them, and they
Right.
hired you and gave you a job and were helping you get by. I think that you deserve.
Sure. Okay, so your mom and dad, was your dad in the war?
My dad. He went to. Where did he go to college? Let me think about it. Anyway, after college, he went in the military, and they put him through medical school. And then once he graduated from medical school, he had to serve 4 years to pay the government back for putting him through medical school. So he was in occupied Germany for 4 years.
Were you with him there?
I wasn't born yet.
Oh, you were born in 1952.
Yeah, but no, he
Oh,
was.
no, I'm sorry.
It was way back.
Yeah, okay. Was your mother with her?
No, they hadn't even met yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He didn't meet her till he came back and started his practice.
Okay.
Well, no, he actually knew her. He knew her and had been an acquaintance to her
Right.
when he lived here.
Right.
But then they went their whole separate different ways. You know,
And she married somebody else?
No.
No, she was not
She
married.
was only
Okay.
married one time.
Okay.
And he was only married one time too,
Okay.
till she passed.
Okay.
She was actually did well in school. She went to the University of Arizona. My mother did, and got a degree, and then ended up going to Washington D.C. and serving as a secretary for a congressman in Washington D.C.
For an Arizona congressman?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know who it was, but anyway, and actually won the cherry blossom beauty contest. I have a picture of her somewhere, of her, the picture they took of her after she won the contest, and boy, she was absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't have great pictures back then, but I was surprised at how pretty my mom was when she was in her early 20s.
Right. I mean, it's a surprise to see early pictures of our parents and grandparents as, like my grandmother, the little Swedish girl, right? And when it says, okay, now I know why Grandpa married her.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, when I saw the picture of my mom, I went, holy smokes, what a babe.
Yeah.
She was beautiful.
Yeah. Do you know anything about her parents and
Yes,
their
but
family?
her parents were both dead by the time she was 12 years
This is,
old.
are they Reeds?
No, Peck.
Peck, okay.
Yeah, the Peck family.
Okay. And what did they do? Do you know?
I don't know what he did. I think he might have been a doctor.
Okay.
I think he was. I think he was some sort of a doctor. Peck was
In Tempe?
in Tempe. Yes.
Okay.
And but they were both dead by the time she was 12.
Uh-huh.
Her mother, Mary Moore's sister, my mother's mother, died of complications during an operation.
Okay.
And then my Peck, my mom's dad, he died at 60 of cancer of the pancreas. 60 years old. He got cancer of the pancreas and died from it.
Okay.
And I think several of his relatives died from the same thing. It's kind of a hereditary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so did my mom. She died at 60 years old, cancer of the pancreas.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So it was a kind of a hereditary thing. Fortunately, I got a lot of my dad's genes. He lived to be 90.
Well, you're obviously, yeah.
And the whole family lived to be... His whole side of the family lived long lives, at least 80.
Mm-hmm.
And her whole side of the family, I think there was one great aunt or something that lived to be maybe 80 or so. Most of them died young. So anyway, that's kind of scary, isn't it?
Well, you're well past an age where you're going to have to worry about dying young. So
I know.
So
Now it's about just trying to have good quality of life, trying to maintain your
that's
health.
why you ride the bicycle.
Well, actually, I ride the bike because I truly enjoy it. It's one of those things I'm good at it, and when you're good at something, you enjoy doing it.
Sure.
And
Well, let's get you there. Okay, so you're born in 1952.
Right.
We've got the family history kind of a foundation.
okay,
So, as you're growing up, what are your first memories here in Tempe? Well, we're not in Tempe. You don't live in Tempe. You live in Phoenix, actually.
No, we live in Tempe.
Is this the Tempe city limits in here?
oh yeah, I never lived anywhere but the city. of
Okay,
Tempe.
so this is even though it's at 46th Street.
Oh no, right now. Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm talking about as a child.
Yeah.
I lived in Tempe. No, this is actually a Tempe school district,
Right.
city of Phoenix.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Right.
So, what are your memories as you grew up? What were your childhood activities and
Well,
Friends.
They actually owned a home on Broadway first for 2 years. My mom and dad did a small little home, and I don't remember that at all.
you know where it is? Which house that is?
No, but I wasn't even born.
No.
But I wasn't born yet
Mm-hmm.
when they lived in that home. They had Ann when they lived in that home. Then they moved to 43 East 14th Street.
Just north of Apache or Apache Boulevard.
Just
Just
south
south.
of Apache, in between Mill
East
and
of-
College,
Okay.
and on the south side of 14th Street.
Okay.
There's actually a canal right behind the house.
Right. That little canal.
Yeah, that little tiny canal that we used to get irrigation.
And the people would drive up and down the alley because it was kind of the only way to get in and out of there sometimes.
So I think there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of complaining from the neighbors about the dust.
Yeah.
But anyway, for me personally, some of the early things I remember, in particular, I'd say one of my earliest experiences that I remember is going with my mom as a little kid, but I still remember, to El Rancho Market. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
On Mill Avenue, just south of University. It was a strip mall with the El Rancho, and there was a barber shop and all kinds of raised ASU barber shop. Going there with my mom, and then going to the green stamp store. Back then the green stamps were a big deal. And then driving home, and she's driving me home in this older automobile, and she went around she's going down Mill Avenue, and she turned left onto 14th Street, and I'm hanging on the passenger side door, and the door flew open, and I went flying out and landed in this huge bed of roses. And they chewed me up. Rose bushes are real thorny. I remember that because that was such a, traumatic experience to flying out the car. And it's traumatic for her. I remember her bringing me home and putting me in the kitchen sink and filling with water and washing me and cleaning me and all that kind of stuff. That's one of my very earliest memories.
Do you have any idea how old you were?
Maybe 3,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit older than that.
Branded in your brain, huh?
And then I have lots of really good memories. I have lots of great memories as a kid. Had a real good childhood, great parents. We lived in a really, and I consider it to be, especially back then, we had a really nice home. That home, I wish I owned it today. It was a really nice home. That canal that was right behind the home, just south of it, was a favorite place to hang out. We would hang out in the canal, on the canal bank. The canal was just a great place for kids to hang out. So me and a few of the other neighbor kids would hang out on the canal. I can remember, there's just so many really fun things that happened as a kid. Arizona State University, which is close by, was growing. And so about the time we're skipping quite a bit. Let me here's a good story. As a kid, I think around 10 years old or so, I had a Schwinn Stingray. And after school, I'd go home and get on my Schwinn Stingray, and it had a BB gun. And I'd take my BB gun and get on the Schwinn Stingray and ride about 5 blocks, because it was all farmland around there, and hunt bunny rabbits in the cotton. And I think I was only about 10 years old then. That was a good experience.
When you say Stingray, is that the little bike?
Yeah, the little Schwinn Stingray that had the big banana seat.
Yeah.
And the little thing on the back that stuck, little bars that stuck it in the back. And small bike, really small bike.
Did you do that by yourself, or did you have a friend that went with you?
Maybe that's where all this came from.
Maybe.
The beginning of it, anyway.
Yeah. When he says all this, he's talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, there's more.
7 bikes that are visible right here.
Yeah, there's one in the shop and one in two. One in the shop.
There's 8 back there.
Yeah, that's my very first bike when I started cycling again. Very first one.
Well, we'll get as an adult. We're still 10 years old. But
yeah. So anyway,
these are 8 mountain bikes.
well, there's some road bikes too.
Well,
There's
road
some
bikes,
real nice
right,
road
okay.
bikes. Mostly mountain bikes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mountain bikes, 2 road bikes.
So you're 10 on your 10 years old on your Stingray running into the cotton field.
Yep.
Which would be about where? Would you be east of College? Daly Park?
It was west from 14th Street.
Oh, across Mill.
No. From 14th Street, you'd go down and you went. It's like close to my grandparents' property on Row Road.
That's east.
Yeah, east. You went east.
Yeah.
East and a little bit south.
Yeah.
And it'd probably take me 15, 20 minutes to get there on my bike. And I'd put the bike in the bushes and then I'd hunt these rabbits. I think the whole time I did that, I got 1 or 2.
You actually killed it?
With a BB gun. You have to hit it right in the head. And usually what that do, just stun them good enough for where you could get there and take care of the rest of it.
Yeah.
That all came about because my dad was a hunter.
Okay.
Anyway, and so that was an experience that I had. Another really fun experience is at 10, I also did things like I got a job mowing the neighbors' lawns. And I had one customer who owned the lawnmower. And I would mow his lawn. I'm trying to think of his name. He was a professor at ASU. I would mow his lawn once a week for usage of the lawnmower.
Is this a power mower or is it a push
Yeah,
mower?
it was a gasoline mower.
Gas mower, okay.
And I remember walking down to the gas station, and gasoline was 19 cents a
And
gallon.
where was the gas station?
The gas station, this gas station was on, I think it was pretty close to College and Apache Boulevard. Maybe just a little bit further east from there. Not too much though.
There was a service station at the corner of Myrtle and Apache.
Okay, maybe that's it.
Which is 2 blocks west of College.
Okay.
But it's right straight up the street from where you were living.
Right, okay, that would have been it.
You're the first person that's identified that service station to me.
Oh, really?
In the interviews I've done.
Really?
It wasn't very big.
No.
Just a couple of pumps.
Yep.
You remember the man that owned it?
No, I just remember 19 cents for a gallon of gas and how expensive that was.
His name was Beck.
Beck?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He had a little apartment overhead.
Right. Was it I think it was a Union 76.
I don't remember what the brand name was.
Okay.
It was a service station.
Okay.
Very small.
Yeah.
Now there was not Nevitt's, Brody's Richfield station.
Okay.
But that was a big station.
Right.
Had two islands of pumps and a big bay for a garage for cars. But I don't think that's what you're describing.
No, this first one you talked about is what.
So, do you remember a restaurant that was right behind that service station? A little restaurant back in there.
I can't say that I do.
The area that you're talking about is where the Grady Gamage is now,
right.
just to the east of it. And there were some old residential houses in there, Quonset hut type houses,
right,
from World War II.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all ASU now.
It's all it was all ASU then, but it was except for the service station and this little restaurant. Okay. So
you know what else I remember down there? It was Goodwin Stadium.
Goodwin Stadium, of course, was at College.
Right there in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where Arizona State played their games until they built the new stadium.
That's where Tempe High played their games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, but then Tempe High got their own field. They built a field.
Yeah.
And I remember the first game between Tempe High and McClintock. And it was supposed to be played at Tempe High. And McClintock would not play on our field. So we ended up playing at Goodwin Stadium. And McClintock won 3-2. What a score, 3-2. So, and that was played at Goodwin Stadium. McClintock also, I know we're getting kind of ahead here, but
No,
McClintock also didn't have their school done. The construction wasn't completed when they first opened, and so Tempe High had double sessions. You've heard about that?
Yes.
Tempe High went to school from 6 till noon, and then McClintock used it from 12:30 to 6:30 at night, and it created a serious dislike between the two schools. We didn't want to have to get up and go to school at 6 in the morning, and we didn't like them in our school at all. So, but that created some problems. There was some dislike there.
So what year did you graduate from?
I was supposed to graduate in 1970, but actually, because I failed freshman English in high school, I had to go back and take it. So I didn't actually graduate till 71.
Okay. Did you go to school in 71 or just take one class?
I took one. I took one class.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, and then I went to Mason Community College.
So you're describing the double sessions. That must have been in what, 1971?
No, it was
70?
There was like I think I started in 66. I think it was 66.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
About my
Yeah.
freshman year.
That's okay.
It was only for a short period of time.
Yeah, it was just the 1 year, I think.
Right.
Or-
I think it was only one semester even.
yeah.
The second semester. No, it was the first semester. It had to be. First semester, and then I think they got their school done, and they were out the second semester to their own school.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1966. That was in 1966. And Ann really remembers it.
Okay. Well, my brothers both graduated from the new McClintock and were involved in the double sessions.
Were they?
At Tempe High.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't remember it that well because I was a freshman. But
Well,
but I remember the inconvenience, and I remember Ann not liking it at all.
yeah.
So, but anyway, that's kind of getting ahead of the thing. Other things as a kid, there was a lot. We would go hang out at Tempe Daily Park was a favorite place to hang out.
Okay. Who were your friends? Who did you pal around with?
There was
in
there
grade
was
school. Where did you go to grade school?
I went to Broadmoor
Okay.
and then McCamey.
And who was the principal at Broadmoor?
Heck if I know.
Oh, okay. You
I
know,
can't
do you remember
remember.
any of your teachers?
Very few. I remember a few of them, but
Who are they? The
very
ones
few.
that you do remember?
Well, the ones I really remember, ones that really had a big impact on me, were first happened in junior high
okay.
at McClintock.
Okay. I
There
mean,
was-
at McCamey.
At McCamey.
Yeah.
At McCamey. Mr. Kaufman, who was a PE teacher.
Is that C or K?
I think it's C.
Yeah.
Was had a big influence on me.
And then why was that?
Because I was athletic, and he was I think he taught a couple classes. He was also a PE teacher.
Okay.
So, and he was an ASU football player.
Yeah.
He was an All-American at ASU offensive lineman. He was built like a brick, but he was a good-hearted, good guy. So I remember him pretty well. And a lot of the other teachers, though, I never really had great relationships with them. It was we were distant until I got into high school. And then I had a couple in high school that I became very close to.
How about was Joe Sprichelli? Was he there?
I think, yes, sir. Yes, that was in McClintock.
He was the principal at McCamey.
I mean, I'm sorry, at McCamey.
Yeah.
You're right. That's what I meant, McCamey.
So he was
Yeah.
your principal there?
Yeah, Joe Sprichelli. Yep, that's right.
And then you were to high school. And who were the high school teachers that impacted you?
Well, the one that made the biggest difference, his name was Greg Deal. And he was an agriculture teacher. He was by far the biggest influence of any teacher I ever had on me. He was a really good guy, great teacher. You just got along with him. Just had a good relationship with him. And
Did you take agricultural classes?
I did all 4 years. thought I was going to inherit a dairy. Then the land became too valuable. That was into that.
Right, yeah.
So anyway, he was my favorite teacher. Then I had another teacher named Mr. Painter, who was the auto mechanics teacher. I got along and liked him very well.
So you took industrial arts then as well?
No, I don't think I did take industrial arts.
So auto mechanics?
Auto mechanics, agriculture. Back then you had to take PE, and then you had the traditional classes. You had to take history, had to take English.
Do you remember your English teacher that flunked you?
No, I don't remember the name of the English teacher that flunked me. That was like my second year. I remember my freshman English teacher very well, and her name was Shelley Cohen. Mm-hmm. And she also had a huge influence on me. I really, really bonded with her. She was a great friend. I still think about her. I wonder how her life went. Our class, our freshman English class, was her very first class that she taught, and she graduated from U of A. Mm-hmm. Shelley Cohen. So she was a great gal. As far as other teachers, the history teacher, the mayor, Harry Mitchell.
Yeah.
He had some influence on me. He was a pretty good guy.
Did you know him socially at all?
No, just through class.
Okay.
Later, after I got out a little bit, when he, became a politician, knew him some then, see him and talk to him, and so those were the major.
For school.
Yeah.
How about your dad's social circle? Were you involved in? Who did he hang out with?
He had
Hayden, I think was.
Well, he hung out with Leonard Monty.
Okay.
And
did you know? Was that involve you? Did you have social?
Oh yeah.
The families.
They would every Saturday they'd have a luncheon at Monty's, and all the Tempe people would go.
Yeah. Well, they did that for years.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And occasionally I would go. I had a good relationship with Leonard. I never worked. My sisters both worked for him. I never worked for him. But I would go down there sometimes on Saturdays at his request and go hiking with him. He'd like to hike up the backside of A Butte, which is like mountain goat.
Yeah, straight up, yeah.
Right. So I'd go with him.
On the true backside?
On the true backside.
On the north side, not just on the west edge, which is steep enough.
No, on the true north side.
Yeah.
And, with that, I was an athlete.
Yeah.
And so I'd smoke it a couple times before he could get up it. But I would do that with him, and when we'd have lunch and talk, sometimes I would do that with him. They had quite a group there. The Haydens were a big part of the group with Monty, and the Moores. The Moores were a big part of that group.
You're talking about John Moore?
John and Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Would Liz come to those breakfasts or those lunches?
Every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And of course, and my mom and dad were a big part of it. I think some of the other doctors occasionally would come.
Other doctors being?
Other doctors, I'm trying to think who they were.
Did Dick Flynn ever participate in that?
I think occasionally Dick Flynn did come.
Sherman Axel. Not Sherman Axel. Sherman is the boy.
Right.
I forget his first name.
I'm not...
And Westerfeld.
I think maybe Westerfeld.
Lopiano?
Maybe. Some. Monty liked doctors. Monty's big thing, he's a historian.
Right.
He was really into history, especially the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Oh.
They would have these big talks about the Romans and what they did right and what they did wrong and how history repeats itself, and they'd go on and on about that stuff. They would all go for walks before the luncheon every Saturday. They'd do these walks, and it would be Hayden and my dad and Monty and a couple other guys. I think maybe Dr. Flynn might maybe sometimes. And there were a couple other guys. There was a picture on the wall at Monty's restaurant. There were 4 in particular that would do those Saturday walks and then have the luncheon together every Saturday.
That was generally in the bar area, I think.
Yeah, there was a picture of him. There was a really good picture of my mom in there, too. So, I guess they had a long-term relationship, many years of friendship.
How about dentists? There were some dentists that would probably come there too.
Dr. Yount.
Dr. Yount, yeah. Okay. How about veterinarians?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're right. I think he participated a lot.
What's his name?
Hal Jenkins.
Okay.
We talked about that on the phone, remember? First time you called me. You wanted his name.
Yeah.
Baseline Animal Clinic.
Yeah.
Great. And originally, he was right on Mill Avenue.
Right.
Actually, it was right on Mill and University. He had an office almost not on the corner, but right next to it.
Right.
So, and Hal Jenkins was a great vet. I don't think you could ever had a better one.
There was a hospital here. I know that there was a Seventh-day Adventist hospital. In fact, Tempe Hospital was a Seventh-day Adventist hospital. Didn't serve meat in the hospital. One of the things.
Tempe Community Hospital?
Tempe Community Hospital.
Yeah.
Became St. Luke's and is now known as St. Luke's.
Right.
And there were several doctors that had a little hospital down on 8th Street and just by the railroad tracks between Mill Avenue and the railroad tracks. Do you remember that at all? Does your dad, in his social circles, did he have any contact with them?
Well, what he did is, I think when he left that office that they had on University and
8th
Mill,
Street,
I think he and John Moore went together and built University Medical Center, which was on Row Road, and it's still there.
Yes, yeah.
And I think he went right from
And
there
that's
to his own office
Okay. Yeah.
in University Medical Center.
Right.
And John Moore and my dad did that together. It was a joint venture.
Yeah. As far as the construction goes.
Yeah,
because John Moore wasn't a doctor.
No, but as far as the construction and the ownership and the rent and all that.
Yeah, Dr. Rothbart was in there. The lab.
Yeah.
That moved in there. The
Yeah.
same. Limon.
Limon.
He moved up there.
Didn't he originally have that lab on Old 8th Street too? Didn't he have a lab there?
He had, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at.
Limon, yeah.
I've talked to his daughter, and then they were the big labs. Kind of put those small independent labs, but he was a complete lab. He did all the
he did
everything in.
I went to school with his kids.
Yeah,
he had a son who was a great athlete. He was really small, and he played at Mesa Community College the same time I did. And he was half our size, but he had so much heart. You had to respect him. Michael Limon.
Did you play sports in high school?
I played 3 years in Pop Warner. I played 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for the Tempe Rhinos, for the Verdugos. Coach Verdugo.
Okay.
Armando, and what was his brother's name? Frank. Armando and Frank. And we had a great Pop Warner football team. We finished second, I think, all 3 years.
Did you play in high school? Yeah.
I played freshman, and then when I switched to JV, I had serious issues with the coach.
Who was the coach?
Benedict. Could not get along with Coach Benedict at all.
Okay.
I didn't like any of his disposition, his attitude, any of that stuff. So I refused to play football. And I could have probably been one of the best players that they ever had after having already played 3 years at Pop Warner and having all size and strength and power and all that stuff. So I ended up not playing varsity football at Tempe High. But I did other stuff. I lifted weights and I ran and I was very active. And then I went to Mesa Community College, got to play.
Did you
year.
Did you letter at Tempe High in some of those other sports?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I actually, I lifted weights, like I said, I would run. I did a lot in PE. I did track and field a little while, didn't like it. But most of my time was spent with agriculture.
Ah.
I went that road.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to have a farm.
Yeah.
So I decided to go that road instead. I really wanted to play football, and if Woodmer was the varsity coach, Paul Woodmer at Tempe High when I was in JV.
Zuko, whatever happened? When did
He
come
was
in?
assistant coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned the dairy a couple of times. I know we had a conversation before we started recording here.
Right.
Describe this. Did we do that on the recording? Where you describe the dairy, how the dairy came,
The orchard and all that kind of stuff, how
yeah,
it was?
Let's do it.
Well, the best I remember is you went down McClintock about halfway between Broadway and Southern, and you made this would be coming from north heading south on McClintock, and you make a right-hand turn, and there was a canal right there, and out front before the farmhouse, I had a nice big beautiful farmhouse, there was an orchard. And the orchard had all kinds of different trees in it. It had apple trees, it had orange trees, I think there were grapefruit, there were all kinds of trees in it.
Probably peach.
Probably, yeah.
Peach.
It was
and pear.
What's that?
And pear.
Yeah, probably all of them, all of the above.
And apricots.
And they were very productive. The orchard did pretty well.
Did they have a fruit stand?
No,
Okay.
they didn't have a fruit stand. But anyway, and they had this big, really old style farmhouse, and then of course behind that, even further west from there, was the dairy itself. And in between the dairy and the big farmhouse, there was a barn, and on the side of the barn, there was a great big chicken coop.
So this is the equivalent, I believe, of Alameda and Dorsey.
I don't think it was that far.
Well, there's Meyer Park there now.
Yeah, would Alameda have gone all the way through to?
Yes.
Probably, you're probably right then.
Because that's where the May place is that we're talking about.
Okay.
And where the Hughes Street is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because that property that your grandfather's brother started and your grandfather came to run was basically the section from Broadway to Southern, McClintock to Rural.
Yep.
There may have been other people that were in there.
Right.
The Hudson Farm. You know where the Hudson Farm was?
They were on the other side of McClintock.
On the east side.
Yes.
Of McClintock.
And they had a huge chunk too.
Mm-hmm. Where McClintock High School is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was where the Hudsons were.
Yes.
And then the Moores were over off of Priest, and the Moore farm was between Southern and McClintock, between Southern and Broadway, just on the west side of Priest.
Okay.
That's where the Moore farm was, where Shalimar is now.
Right.
So the Hudsons probably went as far as Country Club, maybe, or a little further.
Maybe further. They had a big place. Now he was a farmer.
Right.
He farmed.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his.
Yeah.
That was his
right.
thing.
Okay.
We were a dairy.
Right.
With some farming added to it.
Because you farm for feed.
Farm for feed.
Right. Okay. So in high school, and then you go into junior college. You went to
Mesa Community College. And what I was going to tell you about
and
the
you
football.
played football.
I played football, and
Okay.
we finished. The 1 year I played there, we finished second in our conference. And the next year, they won the national championship. Junior college national championship. Back then they were called the Ho-Ho-Coms.
The Hobo.
Ho-Ho-Com.
Oh,
That
okay.
Indian name. You've heard of
right. The
Ho-Ho-Com.
Hocom, yeah.
They were called the Ho-Coms. And at any rate, I got you some blood in my butt.
Yeah.
I'm not used to sitting there like that.
Well, you're usually,
I do fine in a saddle.
This is on a bike seat. Right?
Yeah, it's way different.
Okay. Well, okay. As a kid growing up, what about downtown Tempe? What do you remember about downtown? Did you go to the movie theaters at all? Or was it even open when you were a kid?
Well, I went to the Valley Theater a couple
Okay.
times,
Right.
which is right on Mill Avenue.
Right. Still there.
Yeah. I remember going and seeing the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Okay.
which played like for years.
I know. It's a cult film.
Yeah, it did. It played for years. I remember going and seeing that. And yeah, I think we went to a couple of other movies. I remember that right on Mill Avenue there, not too far from where the theater was, there was a really nice malt shop.
Upton's.
Yes.
Right next door.
Yeah. And you go in there, they had the stools round stools that turn like a...
The big mixers.
In the big mixers, you go in there and you buy a milkshake or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember doing that a few times. I remember Pete's Fish and Chips.
That was a little further south.
Yeah, further south than on the other side of the road.
Yeah. And where the Dairy Queen, just before the Dairy Queen.
Yep, right. I remember the Dairy Queen real well. In the mall there, I remember Ray's ASU Barber Shop.
Where did you get your hair?
Oh, you know what else on Mill Avenue? A lot of people don't talk about this. This is a good one. There was a really nice Western store.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
it was a great store. That guy
was 6th Street or
Yeah.
7th Street.
Yeah.
6th Street.
6th Street. It was 6th Street.
Yeah.
6th Street. Nevitt was on 7th.
Right.
So it was 6th Street. What was the name of it? But it was a good store. And they were Hispanics, but they were really the Maverick store. Does that sound right?
Is that what it's called, Maverick?
I think it was called the Maverick store. I'm pretty sure.
I forgot all about that. How about the Boston store? Do you
I remember that really well. Those people were great.
Okay.
They were way down on Mill Avenue.
Getz?
The Getz.
Did he come to the lunch by chance?
I don't think
At
so.
Monty's? He was just right down the road.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
it.
No, I don't think he participated.
And
in
Sella Financial. There's Sella Sporting Goods.
that. Oh, Sella Sporting Goods. Yeah.
That's where you bought all your sporting goods equipment.
Yeah. They were right on Mill Avenue too, right?
They were on 7th Street, just across the street from Nevitt's.
That's right. And then there was another sporting goods store in the mall later, next to Ray's ASU Barber Shop.
Right. Yeah.
It was in there, which wasn't too far from El Rancho.
Johnny come lately usurping Sella.
Right. You know what? What else in that mall I remember was 31 Flavors.
Oh yes, yeah.
It was in that mall.
And the drugstore on the corner.
The drugstore on the corner.
Corner.
That I remember the drugstore very well. It was really nice people that worked in there.
Well, they had a 5 and dime store, and then that became a record store or something in there. Another one of the big box stores besides the El Rancho.
Right, and then there was a green stamp store in there.
The green stamp store.
And then what else was there?
Green stamps. You got green stamps when you made purchases
At El Rancho.
and then you could trade them in. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I remember people would have books and nice merchandise.
Sure.
Trade good quality. As a matter of fact, the old family cabin, which we still own up in Payson, has 4 chairs that we got at the green stamp store. Still, they were so well built. They weigh about 40 pounds each. They're just folding chairs, but they're all metal, really well made. You wouldn't want one to fall on your foot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We still have those, and they're at the family cabin up there. But anyway, yeah. So I remember that mall pretty well. Wasn't there a toy store in there too?
I don't remember the toy store. I just remember.
I think there was.
There was a Radio Shack in there.
Yep. But I think there was a toy store. I don't worry about that.
Yeah. I worked at the El Rancho Market.
You did?
For many years, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
So you did, what'd you do? What kind
I
of
was a
work?
carry out.
Okay.
And then I actually helped
Bagger
them.
and carry
I
out.
started in the meat market, cleaning the meat market, and
Right.
then my parents made me quit, and they moved for the summer up to Flagstaff. My dad went to work for with my uncle Jim, and we camped. My mother with her 4 kids camped in Oak Creek for the summer. Can you imagine? Today's mother.
Beautiful.
Can you imagine today's mother camping with her 4 kids, and one of them is a 16-year-old. I was 16 years old, cranky because they made me quit my job, and having to deal with that and a campfire. Right? There was no such.
You camped the whole summer there?
I camped the whole summer. We had to move every 2 weeks because that was.
The law.
Yeah,
you couldn't stay in one place too long.
More than 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow.
And you had to move. So and then I came back and I ended up working in the back room, unloading trucks and mopping the floor and that sort of. I'd open the store.
Let me finish about the football. Like I said, I played 3 years in Pop Warner, freshman for Coach Powell. He was actually the wrestling coach at Tempe High.
Okay.
But I played freshman him. JV year, hooked up with Benedict. Could not get along with him. Did not like him. Ended up refusing to play for him. The varsity football coach was Paul Woodmer at Tempe High. So I was going to go back, and that was my sophomore year. I was going to go back to football my junior year and see if I couldn't get on the varsity football team and play for Woodmer. He transferred to Mesa.
In Zubu.
And Benedict took over the varsity.
Oh, okay. So that was
The reason I didn't go back.
Yeah.
I refused to play for him.
yeah.
They several times, several of the coaches got me off to the side and said, you'd be a huge contributor to this team. And I said, I know. I said, but I'm not stupid. You're putting your butt on the line every time you step on the field, even as a kid.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing it for that guy. I don't like him.
Yeah.
If I'm going to put my butt out there and give it all I got and take the risk of getting hurt really badly, I'm going to do it for a coach I like. Perfect example is Coach Verdugo. I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They got the most out of us because they really cared. Benedict doesn't care about anything but his future. I was only 16, 17. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And you ask any of the kids, they'll agree with me.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to have any of that. So anyway, went back to Mesa Community College and played for Woodmer for 1 year. And then, because I had missed so many years, I didn't have the skill set anymore. But he let me, I got to play. I got to play special teams. There was a lot of attrition, so I got to play linebacker some and nose guard some. And we were 9-2. So we did really well. And then the next year, I realized I wasn't going to get to play for ASU. It wasn't going to be that good or anything. So I got a job. And
What kind of job did you get?
my very first really full-time job was, because I would have mechanical aptitude, was working in a gas station for Harold Nevitt. I worked for him for 3 years. He was my second dad.
So
He's a wonderful guy.
Blanchard was there?
Oh,
the
yeah.
volunteer fireman?
Yeah. Ralph. Yeah.
His
And-
wife still comes to the...
And Frank, what was Frank's last name? Frank, the boat guy. He had a really outstanding boat mechanic, and his father, both, they had a boat shop.
Yep. They sold guns.
They sold everything: hunting license, ammunition, guns. They sold fishing equipment. They sold boats, trailers. They did all kinds of automotive repairs. They had the coolest ice house you've ever seen. Back then, you could still buy a 300-pound block of ice. The ice house was way up off the ground,
Right.
like a concrete foundation. It was 2 feet off the ground, so that if you wanted to buy a 300-pound block of ice, it was all one big block.
Right.
And they could stick the hooks in it and drag it
Slide
out
it
right
up.
into the bed of your truck.
Yeah.
And I used to do that all the time. Harold Nevitt was a huge influence on me, probably more than anybody else except for my dad, on the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great guy. He took me hunting and fishing, and
Where did you go hunting?
we would go. His favorite place to go hunting. We would go quail hunting together some, and deer hunting. We go to Florence for quail.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody did. I
Big
think.
Wash, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody did back then.
Well, I didn't.
Huh?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
They got that stupid cat claw down there.
Oh boy, it'll tear you up too. And they got some really nasty cholla too. They have these big fields of cholla. I mean,
Yeah.
just you be cruising along, and all of a sudden you're in the middle with no escape of this huge thing of cholla.
Joya Forest, I call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Lots of rattlesnakes too.
Mm-hmm.
That's some great stories about that. But anyway, for deer hunting, we would go to Sunrise Mountain. You heard of Sunrise?
Mm-hmm.
And that was Harold's deal. That was his whole deal. Sunrise Mountain Range was in between Kingman, Seligman, and I think Prescott, right in the middle between those three. Big mountain range,
There's a...
great deer hunting.
There's a Baca float there.
Yes, the Baca Float.
Is that
Exactly.
right?
That's it. You know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
We would go deer hunting there every year.
Which is another land grant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Still pretty much intact.
There was a land grant, and the cattle company there at that time was called the Green Cattle Company.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of cattle companies, was there a huge cattle company?
I think there was, but it wasn't a relative.
It wasn't. Okay, that's the Four Peaks.
Yeah.
It's out
Yeah,
of the Four Peaks.
They
so it
weren't
wasn't.
related to us.
Okay.
So, as a matter of fact, I think they still have a horse thing going on there on the way to Payson. When you drive up Payson on the left-hand side, that really nice big horse property,
Mm-hmm.
that's Tom Hughes. That's who owns that. His name is Tom Hughes.
Okay.
That's that family.
But it's a different family.
Different than ours.
And that's in Sunflower.
Yes.
Yeah.
or close to Sunflower.
Yeah. Right. This is
Yeah.
basically
It's on the it's on the
It's
west side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know they have deed restrictions there that you can't have chickens.
You gotta be. Why would that be?
They just the guy doesn't want chickens, and so he put a deed restriction, and you can't have chickens.
Hughes did?
Whoever developed that in there, there's no chickens.
You mean just to the ranch?
No, there's several houses. There's a development.
Yeah,
down
there is
there.
a development in. No, I don't know anything about that.
No chickens.
That seems kind of crazy.
It's just one of those little things.
Yeah,
that,
quirk.
Yeah,
Pretty goofy.
So you talk about Nevitt had a big influence on you. Who else in your life had a big influence?
Nevitt had a big influence on me. Then after Nevitt, once I got a little older, you know, the thing goes with your parents, with your father in particular. You kind of butt heads for a while. You have years where you don't get along. You can't really do things together. Can't talk. But then you get past that, and so my relationship with my father later in life really improved, and so he was a huge influence.
So when did you start your own business? So what did you do for work after you worked at Nevitt's for 3 years?
First I worked at Nevitt's, and then I kind of bounced around as a mechanic in a couple different shops, and then I got a job.
What shops in Tempe?
Actually gas stations.
Okay.
There was a Union 76 gas station on Hardy and Broadway. I worked there for a while, and there was another one over on.
Who was the owner of that one? Do you remember?
I can't remember. He was a bald-headed guy.
No, okay.
I can't remember.
It wasn't like Brody. Brody was.
No, it wasn't Brody. I remember Brody. Didn't they have a priest? They had who was the guys that had the?
That was their. Ray Aguilar ended up at Priest and Broadway eventually.
Yeah, Priest and Broadway. There's a nice big gas station.
Right, but he that was later.
Right.
In the 1990s.
Right. No. Before there was another.
Yeah, there was a service station there, and he ended up buying.
I can't remember the name of that family, but they were big Tempe people too.
Yeah.
Big Tempe family.
Okay.
Let's see, other people had a big influence. Okay, well then after I did the gas station, a couple different gas station jobs, I got a job working at a Volkswagen repair shop called Sundance Automotive, who originally was in Tempe on Priest, almost Priest, just a little bit block west of Priest on Apache Boulevard. Sundance Automotive. And I worked there for, several years, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Not Priest. Price.
Price. Yeah, not Priest, Price.
Yeah.
Price, and anyway, and the owner of that place his name was Dave Beck. Dave Beck, Sundance Automotive. And he had a brother who had a Porsche shop in Scottsdale. Frank Beck. But I worked for Dave for at least 4 years or so. And then he's the one that actually promoted me starting my own business. And in 1980, I started my own business, Pat Hughes Performance Transaxles. Matter of fact, lift up your paper right there. Grab a card, yellow card. Look for the yellow cards. They're up a little high, up there, a little further. See some yellow cards?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. There you got one. You got your own Pat Hughes Performance card now.
Well, you may have to fix my transmission then.
Well, I just do Porsche and Volkswagen, and I don't do much
this is
of
a
that
Chrysler.
anymore. No. So anyway, I started that in 1980, and I actually opened rented a space at a place called Brandwood Cars on University between 40th and 48th Street on the south side of the road. It was a buggy shop, Brandwood Cars. And the owner of that, his name was Jim Cunningham. And that's about the time that off-road racing took off. Started becoming very popular. The Baja 1000,
right?
All that kind of stuff. And so he had a buggy shop. He was a tranny builder. There was a real need for a really good transmission builder to build gearboxes that could survive these murderous races that they did. So from there, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. And I worked there for 3 or 4 years and built myself a good clientele and had a good reputation. And then I moved to First Street in Tempe, First and Farmers, into a commercial building there. And I worked there, let's say from 1984 to 1988. And then 1988 was our first big crunch. You probably remember.
Yes.
I mean, it was as bad as anything we've ever had.
Right.
And I remember it really well.
Okay, so when you were first in Farmers, do you remember Acorn Gas? The big propane tank?
I remember Bosco Engine Service.
Okay. Oh, all right.
Do you remember them?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So 84 to 88, and then the crash comes,
The
right?
big crash came, and I had a couple of employees, and I had a really good client. It just died.
Yeah.
I had put a lot of money away, and actually had built and raced my own car for 2 years. And there's the car right there.
Okay.
See the pieces out there? It's in pieces, but
That's your dad's truck I see here. And
no,
then-
that's mine.
okay.
That's a '57 Chevy, all original, factory 4-wheel drive.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Has NABCO, it's worth $30,000 sitting there. You know how valuable cars are today.
Yeah.
It needs to be restored, but it's all there, and it's completely restorable.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, that was my dad. Remember, Dad had the International.
Yeah, the International. Okay. Yeah. He kept that thing running.
And then the CJ5 Jeep.
Right.
That's here. I restored
What happened
it.
to the International?
He gave that to Amy,
Okay.
and we put it on a truck and had it shipped to her home.
Okay.
And I went out there a couple of times and got it running for her, but it's so big and heavy and hard to drive, and no power steering, no power brakes, that she would
He always wanted to drive that down to go dove hunting, right? He liked to take that truck.
I like driving it.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to drive.
Yeah.
It was a beast.
Yeah.
Its nickname was the Gut Buster.
But we're way ahead when we talk about going dove hunting. So let's, because that's how we became acquainted with you, really.
So let's go back to my business.
Yeah.
So I had great success from 1984 to 1988, and the economy went bad in 1988, and just about everybody in my industry went down the tubes. Because almost all of us, majority of our customers were construction people. Either home builders or employees of home builders, or that in those fields, or rental homes, or it's all about housing.
Right.
One segment of housing.
Because there had been a big boom. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean it just flat went down the tubes. So I was living in this home at that time. I've lived in this home for 44 years, and actually the home I went together with my folks, and we bought this home together. They paid half the down. I paid half. I lived here. They helped me a lot. They really did help me. I couldn't have bought it without their help. I bought this home. So I was living here and working in my shop in Tempe on the commercial property. So I got my dad to give me a little bit of money, and myself and a couple of my friends took the carport and converted it into a nice garage. Put all the electrical in, did all the insulation, did a great job, and I just moved my equipment home. And then from that day on, what I did was that I would take in work through shops. No more bringing people to the house, any of that stuff. I had a good clientele with the shops. Other shops that had survived that did all kinds of repairs, not just specializing like I did. And I do transmissions for Volkswagens or for a play buggy or whatever needed to be done. I do it. I go pick it up. I bring it home. I do the rebuild. I take it back, and they pay me for it. I quit doing parts at all. I wanted to have anything to do with the city. That was the hardest part of having my own business. Dealing with the government. It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was just, they didn't want you to, I don't think they wanted you to succeed the way they treated you.
Yeah.
And I finally got to a point where I'd had all I could take. I remember when things were starting to get rough that these state government people showed up at my shop one day, and they came in and they go, "We want to do it, and want to, check your place out, this, that, and the other." And I said, "Why? Why are you here? You're obviously here for a reason. Tell me what it is." Well, we're represent the Department of whatever, Arizona Revenue, and we're going to start charging everybody 1% on their personal property. I said, "You got to be kidding me. You're going to charge me for the equipment I've already paid for and paid the tax on and everything.
Do an inventory tax. Yeah.
And you're going to charge me tax on that? I'm done.
Yeah.
This game's over. I'm out of here."
Yeah.
That was the clincher for shutting the shop down and moving home. Them coming to me and saying, "We're going to start charging you 1% on..." Nah, we're done.
Yeah.
So anyway, then since 1988 on, I just worked out of here, which was awesome because I had no overhead. I'm really careful. I'll show you. I was really careful, always a real green person, careful with the chemicals, made sure they all went into a barrel, and I had the official people come pick it up and paid them the money to haul that hazardous waste away, so we didn't have any issues with that. Took good care of everything. Always did my income tax returns. I've always been a straight shooter. I figure that's sleep good at night.
Yeah.
You know, if you're honest and straightforward, I hear all these stories about people being, harassed by the IRS, whatever, Well, if you did it right, there's nothing to harass over.
Yeah, my accountant is very, very diligent about making sure there's
mine is too.
That kind of stuff.
Mine
Okay,
is too.
so you've been working here and now in your recreation. When did you start riding bicycles, like for recreation?
Okay,
and enjoyment.
About 1990, I would say. I had not taken very good care of myself. I just worked all the time, and then I didn't exercise. I smoked Camel non-filters, and it didn't have a good diet. And I had gotten all the way up to 314 pounds.
And you're how tall?
5'11", and I was 5'11" and a half at my tallest, but we don't shrink.
Yeah.
So now I'm probably about 5'10". I bet I've shrunk 1.5 inches at least.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor, and Dr. Hughes, and he said, "Pat, you gotta take care of yourself. You're in your 40s now, and you got high blood pressure, and you're way overweight, and you're smoking cigarettes, and you're dealing with all those chemicals in your shop. There's no way to avoid dealing with breathing them and getting them on your skin and that." He goes, "You gotta change, or game over." So I had that athletic background from when I had played Pop Warner football, a little bit of high school, and at Michigan College. I fell back on that. And it took me 6 years. I went from 314 to about 200 in 6 years. And the way I did it, of course, is the only way it can be done is calories in versus calories out with exercise. And originally I started trying to do a lot of hiking and maybe even run some, but it was so heavy that my joints couldn't take it. That was a solution.
Yeah.
That bike right there. I bought that for $200, and I would ride that twice a day. I'd get up early in the morning and ride that on the Highline Canal over here, all the way to 35th Avenue back in the morning, and then do it again at night, twice a day.
Yeah.
And boy, that burns some calories. But there's no impact, and you're riding get your cardio up, you're using your muscles, but you're not pounding your joints.
Yeah.
And so I got way down from doing that. And just for fitness, but I accidentally, not on purpose, fell in love with that. And so that from there it went to all the way down to 185 pounds and becoming competitive. And I raced elite in the not the pro level, but the elite level. Raced road bikes for about 3 or 4 years, and then I started racing mountain bikes, endurance 100-mile mountain bike races. And I did that all the way until I was 60 years old. I did my last race, Leadville, the toughest mountain bike race in North America, which is at 10,000.
Yeah.
Starts at 10,300, goes to 13,300.
You need oxygen.
Huh?
You need
There's
oxygen.
no oxygen. There is no oxygen. So it's a suffer fest.
Yeah.
And I actually won Barn Burner. I won the Barn Burner race to qualify for Leadville at 59 3/4 years old. And that qualified me for Leadville. So I entered the race, and I did the race, and I finished it. And the year I did it, there were 2,200 entries. 700 people did not finish. And I finished it in 12 hours. So, and that was my last race. That was the last time I really did a big-time race.
So what about recreation? I know that you hunt, obviously, hunt birds.
Well, I'm a steward for South Mountain Park and have been since 1990.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty big-time deal.
Did you know Don?
I did know Don.
Don Pender?
Yeah.
Were you there when he went off the mountain? He died in South Mountain Park.
You mean mountain biking, riding a bike?
No, on a motorcycle.
Okay, no, I'm thinking about Don the park ranger.
Don
There was
Don Pender.
Okay,
He did carburetors
Oh, he did.
out of his garage like you do.
Right.
Right, and
Right.
he had a heart attack and was on a motorcycle.
And crashed.
The crash was a result of him having died while having while riding the motorcycle.
I've had several friends do that with bikes.
But it was in South Mountain, so I just didn't know if you knew him or not. He was because he was a car guy.
Okay.
Did you ever run across a guy named Steve Gold? He did restorations for Rolls Royce and Bentleys.
Oh, really? No, the name sounds.
He was up in Prescott Valley. He just died recently.
Did he?
Yeah. So died at home. Well, anyway, so your recreation, like hunting, your dad was a dove hunter, a bird hunter.
Well, he liked to deer hunt, and actually his favorite was javelina.
Well, when I say we, myself and our family group, your dad started hunting with us.
Yeah,
right.
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had been hunting with Hayden.
Dub Hudson. Started with Dub Hudson. They're hunting with Dub Hudson.
Okay.
The Hudson Ranch.
Yeah, right.
And then from
Hut is his son, I think, or
no. Dub Hudson was somebody he met from Arizona State University.
yeah, but how about the other farmer Hudson? Was on the council, Tempe council.
Dub Hudson. The other Hudson.
John Hudson is his name. His real name is John, but they call him Hut.
Okay.
Maybe I think was a part of that farming.
Well,
family.
what they would do is they would do horseback deer hunting in the Matazelle wilderness.
Right. Well, I never was involved in the big game hunting with your dad. It was just because I'd been hunting with Dick Flynn for years.
Right.
I came in with a cold in August, basically, and said, Dick, Dr. Flynn, at that time he was still Dr. Flynn. This is in the 1980s, 1990s.
Didn't he have a great personality?
Oh my gosh.
What a guy.
And I said, I have to get over this by September 1st for dove season. He says, you hunt doves? Every September 1st, I knew for sure that I'd be with Dick Flynn. And he knew that he'd be with me, and I'd pick him up. We'd go dove. If it wasn't anybody else went, it was it. Then your dad showed up, and then you started to come with your dad, and that's kind of that's been how many years?
Oh gosh, many.
Yeah, your dad was in his late 70s, early 80s when we started doing that.
Yeah,
yeah.
And, he loved it.
How long is your dad? Your dad died what year?
2011.
Yeah, so that's 10 years ago. So he hunted with us for 20 years. So it was,
he loved to go.
Yeah.
Him and Dub Hudson, not Dub, Hud Reynolds. Hud Reynolds was he worked for Arizona State University in their one of the departments there for research on national forests and that kind of stuff. Yeah. He had a degree. He had an interesting history. He was in a submarine in World War II that got damaged and sunk to the bottom of the ocean and was at the bottom of the ocean for 2 weeks before they were rescued.
He may have been I have a cousin that may have been on that boat with him.
It was a submarine, yeah.
Yeah. He was on 3 submarines. This cousin was on 3 different submarines that sunk.
Yes. Whoa. And
anyway, survived, yeah.
He I don't know how he met
was your dad overseas during World War II? Where did
he was occupied Germany.
Okay. So
he told me some great stories about.
And you're named after a friend of his who was killed at Tara.
Pat. Yeah. Pat. His name was Pat.
You know his last name?
No.
Okay.
Can't remember his last name.
I remember the reference when we were out one time when he was talking about him.
Yeah.
I think
they went to medical school together.
Oh, okay. Was Dick Flynn? I think was he in World War II as well? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know that much about him in terms of that. I think he was.
Yeah, my dad actually ended up going there for occupied.
Yeah.
And the war was over.
Right.
Technically it was over, but it wasn't over.
It was pretty nasty, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he told me a story about a couple of American soldiers that had an automobile accident in town, like in Berlin. And he was in Berlin, so they called the doctor, so once you go to the scene. So we went there to the scene and met the military police there, and they were taking care of these guys who've been injured in this car crash. And all of a sudden, one of the military police guys just falls over. And we're looking, what the heck is going on with him? Some sniper shot him. And the Germans hadn't given up yet,
Right.
So he said it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
You never knew. It was good. Couldn't trust anybody. You didn't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Vietnam. They didn't wear uniforms. You didn't.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, he ended up doing that 4 years. He also told me the other thing he told me about being in Germany was that he got pneumonia really badly one time. He thought he was going to die, but he did finally recover from that, and then he was fine after that. But he said that that was probably the most stressful time of his life, being in occupied Germany, and he said he just imagined what it would have been like during the war. Being an American soldier in Germany during the war. Talk about tough.
Well, I think probably the most stressful time they ever had was when they set my arm. Your dad and Bill Payne.
Set your arm? What happened to your arm?
I broke it.
Oh, and they had to put the bone back together?
No, it was a silver spoon fracture, but they were in the hospital. They said they were so proud of themselves for making it straight. My dad was there. And
so they have to pull it like this?
Yeah, well, whatever they did. I was asleep. They gave me ether. But they were so happy that they were fooling around with it. They broke it again.
Oh no! You're kidding
My
me.
dad said, "Yeah." So
leave it alone, you guys.
So that had to be pretty stressful for those guys.
Oh, no kidding.
But they were iconic figures. Bill Payne and your dad, Tommy Hughes.
And Dr. Flynn, Westerfeld, all those guys. Yeah.
Axel Sherman. Yeah. Dr. Axel's son became a doctor.
I think Westerfeld's the one that delivered me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where were you born?
St. Joe's.
In St. Joe's, okay. The new St. Joe's.
Yeah.
The one on 3rd Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, growing up in Tempe, you indicated you had a good time in high school and grade school. How about growing up in Tempe? What do you think of Tempe as a community? I know you're not there as far as living there, but
I think it's still a pretty good community. It's the homes have really, really done well as far as retaining and gaining in value.
Yeah. Especially
in Old Town Tempe, those homes have done really, really well, amazingly well. Most of the people that live in there, I think, are, I think in general the areas, most of it's pretty good. Every city has some kind of not so good stuff,
Sure.
But Tempe, for the overall, I'd say Tempe's about as good as anywhere.
Well, your old house, 43 East 14th Street, Cliff Jones lives either in that house or close to that house, because Cliff Jones was the retired fire chief out of Tempe.
Okay.
He moved into that neighborhood. He sold his house down on La Diosa.
Right.
And then he's moved up there. He's in that neighborhood. I don't know exactly what house. Now that I know what your address is, I'll see him every once in a while.
It's a all red brick house, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful home.
Yeah. Well, there were several people in there.
The Dana brothers lived 2 houses down.
Dana
Brothers Dodge.
Nina Murphy lived in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
She was the the women's athletic director for Arizona State.
Right.
And so that's where a lot of the professors, the Montgomerys.
He was
an architect.
Directly across the street towards Apache Boulevard was the president of ASU. What was his name? Gilland?
Gamage.
No, right at that time. No, it wasn't Gamage. It was before him, I think. Lived right in the house, right across the street from him. I think it was Gil. What was his name?
I don't know.
He lived in that house right across the street, and all the people in that old area, they were all good people.
Yeah,
it was a really good area to live in. But like I said, George Dana, lived 2 houses to the east of us on the same side of the street, and I had some interaction with his kids. They were older. They went to Tempe High School, but they were older. Steve and Tim Dana. I had a sister named Diane. Just a little bit closer to Apache Boulevard, the next street over, 13th Street. There was a family there that were just Georgia and Bill and Elizabeth James lived in the house right next to the church.
Ah, okay.
Just west of the church.
There was only
the church was right on the.
There were only 3 or 4 houses in that street. There wasn't a whole lot of houses up there.
I think you're right. There wasn't that many. But anyway, what a great family they were. The Jameses, George. Bill James, Elizabeth was his wife, and then they had 2 daughters, Jama and Georgia Lee.
Well, did you know the Stonky family at all?
Just barely.
Okay, they lived across the street there.
Yeah.
On the west side of Mill Avenue, on 13th Street. Yeah.
So,
How about in the curve where the train and by the hospital, there were some houses back in there, right up against the track. Did you ever know any of those people in there that lived up in there?
no, actually,
They were on the other side of Mill Avenue, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
like
on the Mill-
it was like a river actually. That,
oh, it was, that was a great place to go fishing.
yeah,
That the canal went
yeah.
underneath, or to go over. I think it went to go over or under Mill Avenue. I went over, didn't it?
I had to, yeah.
It went over Mill,
Yeah,
because
it-
Mill Avenue went down and under.
Right.
So the actual water, right, but next to the, no, it was further. It was further. It went under because it was further
North.
north.
Yeah.
They had a big tunnel underneath there for
Yeah.
the water to go through.
Yeah.
But anyway, and it was just north of the hospital,
Yes. Yeah.
just north.
Yeah.
Back in there, the
There's a
canal
couple
was,
of nice big houses in there.
yeah, there was lots of
Trees.
lined with oleanders and trees.
Yeah.
And I remember I caught a catfish that big in there, with a string and a crawdad. But yeah, that like as a kid, I told you that canal was the hangout. I used to get in trouble for crossing Mill Avenue
Yeah.
all the time.
Sure.
Something else I didn't mention as a kid that we would do is we would take pennies, put them on the railroad track, and have the train come through, and then see if we could find them afterwards. And I remember
Right.
bringing one of those home, and it was like this big around now.
Yeah.
And showing that to my dad, and he didn't think that was cool at all. He said, "You stay away from the railroad track."
Yeah, right. Okay, so how about swimming at the Tempe Beach? Did you go down to Tempe Beach and swim?
I actually, gosh darn, when we were kids, we had a swimming coach. What was his name? Ann and I both had a swimming coach.
It wasn't Joe Sperkelly, was it?
It was Joe Sperkelly.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, he had the swim team.
Yep.
Yeah.
We actually would. He coached. He taught her diving
Yeah.
and me swimming.
Yeah.
Yep, Joe Sperkelly. That's right. You nailed it. That was a long time ago. So there's some more of that athletic thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I ended up later in life at 50. I did my first Ironman. I did 3 Ironman triathlons.
Well, God bless you.
Well, I enjoy doing that stuff. Everything's worn out now, but
Yeah.
it does it. Boy, it's hard on your body. You work it that hard and that long. Listen,
Yeah. Yeah.
hear that?
Oh yeah. And I imagine your knees sound just like
They're worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The way I'm keeping things going is with muscle because there's no joints left. I
Right.
went to the doctor. He says, the X-ray. Look, well, there's no joint in there. It's
Yeah.
bone on bone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, well, no wonder you have joint pain. What do you expect?
Yeah.
You go, well, what can we do to eliminate the inflammation? I can deal with the no joints being left, but the inflammation is what's causing the pain, not the bone rubbing on bone.
Right.
The inflammation is the result of that.
Right.
So I eat some foods that try and help take care of that. But I've tried a lot of different things. You know what works the best?
I like turmeric. It seems to work pretty well.
Well, I like turmeric too, but it messed with my liver.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been taking turmeric.
And it worked great. It stopped it.
And the other anti-inflammatories work on your kidneys. So you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. I'm gonna keep this card, Pat.
You keep it.
Yeah.
Let me show you a couple of pictures real quick for you.
Well, you can't see pictures on the recording.
No, that's okay.
Let's put this to an end. Huh?
Okay.
So we've talked about pretty much everything. Anything else we need to talk about? There's always something we remember and then in the after conversation we start getting, more and more.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Is there anything else you can think of?
No, I don't know. You're the guy that it'll as soon as I turn this off, you'll say something, and I think, oh my God, we should have recorded that. Well, actually, we've been doing this for an hour and a half, so
Wow.
it goes by quick. I love doing this.
Yeah,
Pat.
it's
I
kind of
appreciate
fun.
you doing it. It is
Well, I enjoy
great
it too.
to reminisce about it.
Yeah.
And like I say, in the past, for the past 15, 20 years, I see you once a year, right? Basically,
Right.
when we go dove hunting.
Right.
And the dove hunting has been so bad the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Anyways. We try to find a place, and it was with your dad. That's why it was good to be with your dad. 'Cause
Right.
as he was getting
Go
older,
scouting.
yeah, he wanted to go scout. He would start calling me in May. Let's go scouting for
Yeah.
doves,
Well,
right?
you like doing that as much as you did the hunting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the breakfast.
And the breakfast. You
Yeah.
bet.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and but we also needed a place that was safe for everybody. We had young
Sure.
shooters, and we had your dad,
Right.
and aging out. And so it's and Dick Flynn, of course, he was probably the most unsafe shooter hunter I've ever been around. he never did control his muzzle very well. It was very.
Well, here's one more quick story. At about the time when I was mowing lawns back then, I remember I told you I actually borrowed a lawnmower. Both the guys' lawn to borrow his mower to mow other lawns. Made some money. I bought my first dog. His name was Sport, and I got him from the pound. And that was back before they even spayed or neutered him.
Right.
They gave him shots, and you got the dog.
Right.
Well, I got Sport, and within a year or two, he was a healthy, great dog. He was Labrador, Springer Spaniel mix, 90 pounds. Big, strong, good dog for Dad and I to take hunting and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And he would retrieve birds. He was really fun. But what I used to do is I used to take him to Arizona State University, and they had that huge concrete walkway through the middle of the university. They went all the way from University to Apache.
Basically, yeah.
All the way through there. Well, that's back when skateboarding was a big thing. So I had a leash on Sport, and I get on the old skateboard, and he would pull me all the way, all the way one end and back. I remember a couple of times we get flying, and I would hit one of those olive seeds because there were olive trees, and it would just launch me off the skateboard.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good story. I mean, we did that. We did a lot of skating. We would wait till school was out to do it. Of course, like on Sunday morning or whatever when school wasn't going on.
Sure.
But that was a good experience. One of my points here is that my parents were really big on all of us getting out there and working for and earning our own money.
Yeah.
From the time I was a little kid.
Yeah.
They wanted you to get out there and get a job and work and do your own thing, be productive. That led to me having my own business.
Sure. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's kind of a lost art these days. But
well, I know but having your own business and dealing with, like you say, the regulations is just it's very difficult, and so
customers too.
And cash flow is a really gosh. if you have payment upon delivery, but if you have a delay in receiving your funds, if you have receivables, cash flow can kill a small business.
In no time.
And because the business, they don't save their money and have money set aside. So
right. Well, I learned through the school of hard knocks to put that money away and have backup.
Yeah.
But in '88, when things went down, I think I probably had $15,000-$20,000 backup. But it didn't take long at all.
No, to eat that up. Yeah. No. So. Well, Pat, thank you very much. I love doing this, and I hope that you've had a good.
You need to talk to Ann.
I will.
Give you her contact.
I will do it.